Anne-Marie Caskey, everyone.
4 years ago, on August 21st, millions of people, and I mean literally millions of people, walked outside and put on little plastic glasses, and they turned their faces to the sun, and they watched my father's spirit cross past the sun on his way heavenward. My daddy, Jack, was my first love. He was all pipe tobacco and Old Spice, and he would throw his arms out to greet me and say, "Emery!" When I was little, I would go, when he came home, I'd go into his room and I'd put my hand up on his tall, smooth dresser and feel his watch and coins from his pocket. We had this great little 1960s nuclear family until Dad fell in love with Suzanne. Now, Suzanne was my mother's best friend. And yes, I mean, it was hard, but the destruction of one family helped to allow another family to begin. Jack and Suzanne were married in 1971 in Dallas, Texas, and they walked down the aisle together while my cousin Beth exuberantly played a Carole King song on the church piano. We've only just begun to live. I love Suzanne. She is wise and compassionate and full of life and very short. Dad and Suzanne's romance was like this Hollywood love story. It began in secrecy, and they had these clandestine rendezvous and toes brushing under the table when the families met for dinner. Their love was like magic. It was fairy dust. It was a once-in-a-lifetime romance. My sister and I always idolized their relationship, and we knew that it would be so hard to find. But my dad was brave and adventuresome, and he and Suzanne did all kinds of things together. Dad kind of had rock star status in the small town in Colorado where they lived called Aspen, and he was one of two OBGYNs. He was gynecologist to the stars. He was fit, he was handsome, he told really bad jokes. They ran marathons together, they went on African safaris. Their love was epic. 4 years ago, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. Now, they lived in Athens, Georgia at the time, and he had been chief of surgery at Aspen Valley Hospital, so he knew exactly what such a diagnosis meant. So he and Suzanne looked into possible treatments. They would go in and remove as much of the invader as they could and insert a tube so that nutrition could go directly to his stomach. You see, the tumor had grown so large that it cut off access from his esophagus to his stomach. My sister and my stepsister in California and Colorado and I held each other through the phone lines. And we talked about when we could go to Georgia and help them after the surgery. We wanted to be with him as much as we could in the 3 to 6 months he had left. Well, then everything changed with a phone call. So I've been teaching school for over 30 years, and I drove into the parking lot, and there was the brick wall and the crepe myrtles and the pachysandra, and Dad and Suzanne called, and I had them on speakerphone. So Dad's voice filled my van, and he said, "Emery, I love you, and I'm not going to do the surgery." He proceeded to tell me what would happen. He said, "I am going to go into hospice. They will sedate me for pain. They will remove food and water, and I will go into a coma and eventually die." And he said, "I just wanted to call you and tell you I love you and I'm proud of you, and they are coming to sedate me today." And I said, wait, no. I want to see you. And I can be there in 6 hours. And he said, no, I just want to go with the sound of your voice in my head. I was inconsolable, and my sister and I, and the sister in California and I discussed how we would get together and so that we could be together and hold each other while our father died in Georgia, starved to death. And then the phone rang, and it was Suzanne. And Suzanne said, Anne-Marie, you girls have always followed your father's advice. You've always honored his wishes, but I'm asking you for once, please, defy him, come. And so we rushed to his side. I entered the hospital room, and his eyes lit up. And he said, I'm so glad you came. He snuggled with my teenage daughter. And he took her face in his hands, and he said, baby, is there anything you want to ask me? Anything at all? And they had this little secret snuggle whisper conference to which I was not privy. And family gathered, and family told stories. Morphine dripped. 3 days. Now, we learned that when you're dying in such a way, the senses go one by one, and the last to go is your hearing. And so Suzanne climbed into the hospital bed with him and slipped her hand under the covers to his warm chest, and she whispered in his ear, and she told him the story of their life, of their love, from the day they met to when they fell in love, when they married, their entire life. 3 days. On August 21st, my father, early in the morning, took his last breath, and after they took his body away, my family and I walked outside, put on our little glasses, and we waved goodbye to my father as his spirit crossed the sun. It was the day of the solar eclipse. And it was only then that Suzanne broke. She had faced her lover's death with such strength and compassion, and she held him close so that he wouldn't be afraid. My dad in his life taught me how to live unapologetically and bravely, and my dad in his death taught me how to die unapologetically and bravely. Thank you.